Good morning, everyone. Welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad to be joined once again remotely by our friends John Richardson and Phil Harriman. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Pat.
Morning.
This past week, we had our Voice of the Voter candidate forums in anticipation of the July 14th primary. On Monday, we talked with the Democratic Senate candidates. Sarah Gideon decided not to join us for that. Betsy Sweet and Bree Kidman were here. John, it's your party. Let me ask you, did they score any particular points that may help them come primary day?
Well, I thought that Betsy Sweet did very well. I thought she debated well. I thought she was well versed. And so I thought that she won that debate. It's unfortunate, of course, Sarah wasn't there. But the question I have is whether, that debate will be enough, because this seems to be, with the pandemic, a very wholesale campaign, not a retail campaign, but a wholesale campaign. And so it's who is on the air the most, and it seems to be Sarah. So yes, she, I thought, did well, but I do think it's an uphill battle given how Sarah has been on the TV for so long.
And Phil, you have to wonder if average voters even know that there's a Democratic Senate primary underway, because all they see is a barrage of Sarah Gideon ads taking on Susan Collins.
Yeah, you got that right, Pat. I only the party faithful and the loyalists to the two candidates are really aware of it and may actually go out and vote. The rest of it, frankly, is somewhat of a yawn for the public. And as you said, John, Sarah Gideon has been up on the airways and sustained her presence on the airways long enough that the other candidates, I'm convinced, do not have a chance of winning.
And on the Republican side, in Maine's 2nd District, we had a forum on Wednesday. The ones who are looking to challenge Jared Golden in the fall, Eric Brakey decided not to take part in that forum. Adrian Bennett was there, so was Dale Crafts. And part of the message all through that half hour, Phil, was Adrian Bennett tying herself closely to President Trump and his policies. Crafts also supporting Trump, but reminding voters that he was recruited by and is endorsed by former Governor Paul LePage. That seems like, if you will, a Trump card.
Well, yeah, no pun intended, right? The combination of Kraft's support of Trump and the endorsement / recruiting by Governor LePage is a combination that probably is gives him a leg up. And what better place to emphasize that on News Center Maine, a statewide audience for those who can't afford to get on the airwaves. That was a big boost for him.
And John, given the fact that Bennett and Kraft seem to agree on most issues, at least on broad terms, is that what's going to make the difference here?
Well, I think for Adrian Bennett, she had to say, I support President Trump, because LePage doesn't support her in this primary. And so she had to do and go to the strong suit, which was, I'm a Trump supporter. But I do think that all politics is local, as Tip O'Neill once said. And I do think that saying that Paul LePage supports me in this primary, I think trumps everything, no pun intended. But I do think that it gave Dale Crafts a very strong leg up during the debate.
The legal skirmishes continue in the development of the CMP energy corridor, which is very controversial. A citizens group, which includes some towns, it includes some businesses, has filed an appeal of the Maine DEP approval for the CMP corridor. It asked that it be overturned based on the environmental impact of the corridor, as well as other procedural issues. John, how often are permits like this ever overturned? Is this a winning strategy?
I've not seen many permits overturned. The standard is very high, arbitrary and capricious. It's a very high standard. But in this instance, they have made an argument that I think may have some weight, and that is you're in the right church but wrong pew. You should have been to the Board of Environmental Protection and not to DEP. And we'll have to see how that plays out in the courts. If they've gone to the wrong, environmental agency to seek permission, that could be fatal.
Do you think this is significant, Phil?
Well, I do think the band of people who've come together is significant. There's municipalities, individuals, Next Era Energy. There's quite a combination of interests, not all aligned. For example, some are objecting to it because of the footprint that it takes or the direction that it takes. Others are opposed to it because it creates a real competitive threat to their existing business. So it'll be interesting to see how the court rules. And I concur with John. I think it's highly unlikely that they would overturn it completely. But I would not be surprised if the court says, send it back to the department for further review of some of the issues that were raised in the complaint.
Much discussion has been heard over the past week, and we'll probably hear a lot more about removing symbols of the Confederacy, including renaming some U.S. military bases that are named for Confederate officers. President Trump has chosen to defend the existence of these on the basis of preserving heritage. Phil, do you think, policy aside, is this a smart political move for him?
You know, sometimes these political issues find you rather than initiating them. And I think this is a fair assessment. This conversation came to President Trump as opposed to him initiating it. And, you know, I come to this with tremendous empathy and sympathy for the Americans of African descent. But I also think we have to pause and ask ourselves, if we destroy and take down all these symbols, who's going to remember the history? Why not consider erecting something alongside them that tells the rest of the story so that the future citizens can understand our history, even as painful as it is?
John, what do you think? Is this a good fight for Trump to have, defending? Someone said in one of the op-ed columns, he looks like he's trying to be the last president of the Confederacy.
This puts President Trump on the wrong side of history. These monuments were installed during segregation, during a very difficult time when Black America was seeing a lot of racial discrimination in the South. It's really very clear to me that Black lives matter. I think I understand what that means now. All lives matter, of course, but right now it's Black lives that are in trouble. And that's what the country is trying to do and say. And I think that President Trump is on the wrong side of history trying to defend the Confederacy, which is really tantamount to supporting slavery.
An interesting case for those of us who follow politics. I've never seen anything quite like it, and I don't know if you have either. The Trump campaign has sent a cease and desist letter to CNN demanding that the network retract and apologize for a recent poll that showed the president far behind Democrat Joe Biden in the November presidential election, claiming that the poll includes numerous incorrect and misleading claims. Phil, this is rather extraordinary.
I was astonished at first. I thought it was some sort of fake news, no pun intended. But I did take an opportunity, Pat, to read the analysis. The president hired, another firm to analyze how CNN conducted the poll and pointed out legitimately so how many instances where certain questions were asked or not asked, how they undersampled Republicans. And, polls can be constructed in a way to help get the answer that you're looking for. But in this case, I don't think the president comes up with any net gain by calling them out for essentially having a poll that had some justifiable or understandable inconsistencies in it.
And John, you have to wonder if it's worthwhile to single out one poll when there are going to be scores and scores of them over the next weeks and months.
Well, there already are scores of polls. I mean, this isn't just one poll, but there have been multiple polls that have come to the same conclusion. President Trump is underwater. He's losing by double digits in key states, and he doesn't like it. And I don't even think he understands why he's behind. But he is, and I think he's looking for a retraction to try to change the story. Try to change the byline, so to speak.
Closer to home, the Maine legislative leaders are looking at a return to the State House. It's been about 3 months since the adjournment and when they gave Governor Mills broad emergency powers to address the pandemic. John, do you think lawmakers are ready to start taking back some of that authority?
I do. I mean, I think they're hearing loud and clear from constituents. It's time for the legislature, which is an equal branch of government, to step in and be a part of the solution. Remember, the state of Maine has received $1.25 billion under the CARE Act from the federal government. It is the responsibility of the legislature to figure out how to spend that money. And you can't just leave it to the governor to do so. So I think they're getting a lot of pressure. And I think even Sarah Gideon, the speaker, is getting pressure of suggesting that it's all about politics rather than about policy. And so I think that she and Troy Jackson are going to be moving in to go back into session pretty quickly here, I think, to quiet down people who are complaining they're not involved.
Phil, what do you think?
Oh, boy, I'm frustrated as can be. The legislature should have been suited up in their seats, 2 months ago, because our state budget is going to be out of whack. We've got fraud and other problems in the Department of Labor. We've got the school year coming up to talk about. The tourist season has all but been evaporated. And as John says, the legislature is a co-equal branch of government, and they have been missing in this. And the governor, essentially through executive order, has basically run the state without the legislature, who, from my people I hear from, Pat, both Democrats and Republicans are frustrated, and they want to get back to work.
Yeah, I would say that, John, I usually leave it to you guys to pick the winners and losers in politics every week, but I'm going to pick a winner this week. And to me, that's the New Hampshire state legislature and the University of New Hampshire. For the first time since the Civil War, the New Hampshire legislature is meeting away from the State House in Concord. They gathered this week at the Whittemore Center, a hockey arena for the UNH Wildcats. Maybe Maine lawmakers could take a page from that book if they're looking for a way to meet safely. And now I'll hear your winners and losers. John, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think the winner is the Louisville City Council, who unanimously voted to ban the no-knock warrants that are causing a lot of problems in the country. I also think, unfortunately, the loser this week is President Trump for his decision to visit Tulsa on June 19th, which is kind of known as the end of slavery among the Black community. I think it's just a matter of being tone deaf. And unfortunately, then he is my loser of the week.
And Phil?
My loser of the week, Pat, is the city of Seattle. The mayor and the city council have allowed this sort of country within the city to be formed. That to me speaks of more problems ahead rather than solutions. And my winner of the week this week is the association that represents the hospitality and restaurants in Maine. Good for them for going to the courts to get a definitive answer to whether their constitutional rights have been violated by the Governor Mills.
All right, John, Phil, thank you. We're going to take a week off next week, but News Center Maine's Political Brew will be back before you know it. News Center Maine returns after this.